Please, don't fire her. She's all I have." The little girl's voice cracked through the marble halls of Silverleaf Haven, echoing off the glass walls like a cry no one was meant to hear. Papers scattered across the billionaire's desk as security froze mid-step, eyes darting to the child who had slipped past them. Her shoes were scuffed, her braid unraveling, and her backpack dangled open, school worksheets spilling out like lost pieces of courage. Across from her, the CEO's expression fractured, because somewhere inside, a memory he'd buried years ago clawed its way back. Now, let me tell you how this incredible story unfolded. But before you continue, take a quiet second, become part of this journey, subscribe not just to follow a channel, but to stay connected, share your heart in the comments, and tell me where you're watching from, because your support keeps these stories alive. Now, let's begin. The morning sun climbed over Scottsdale, turning the desert into gold and glass. 10-year-old Ellery Pierce tugged her mother's gray cardigan around her shoulders as she stared at the hospital bed. Machines hummed softly. An IV line snaked into her mother's arm. "You'll get better, Mama," she whispered, her small hand clutching her mother's colder one. Imani. Pierce, 28, opened her eyes weakly. Even sick, she looked proud. Cheekbones sharp, braids tied back, dignity refusing to die in the scent of antiseptic. "Baby, I'm fine. You just worry about school, okay? But you said you needed that new job. Not today. They'll reschedule." But Ellery had seen the email that morning when the nurse handed her mother's phone to check messages. Interview 9 a.m., Silverleaf Industries, assistant position. And she'd heard the tremor in her mother's voice when she said, "We'll figure out rent next week." When her mother dozed off, Ellery stood by the window, the Arizona light flooding in. Outside, a bus rumbled past the hospital. She bit her lip, heart pounding with a decision far too big for a 10-year-old heart. By 8:05 a.m., she'd stuffed her mom's resume into her backpack, slipped into sneakers, and tiptoed past the nurse's station. The automatic doors hissed open, releasing her into the morning heat. The city bus driver squinted when she climbed aboard. "Where to, kid?" "Silverleaf Haven," she said, mimicking the crisp tone she'd heard her mom use in old voicemails. "You sure about that?" She nodded fast. "Yes, sir. My mom's supposed to be there." The ride wound through Old Town Scottsdale, past palm-lined streets and quiet cafes. Ellery gripped her backpack the whole way, counting the minutes. When she stepped off at the gated entrance of Silverleaf Haven, her breath caught. The mansion looked unreal. White stone walls, desert blooms trimmed to perfection, a fountain sparkling like diamonds. She could smell sun-baked earth and lemon trees. She approached the gate intercom. "Good morning," came a clipped voice. "Do you have an appointment?" "Yes, sir, for my mom. She's sick, so I came instead." Silence crackled. Then, unbelievably, the gate buzzed open. Inside, the grand lobby swallowed her whole. High ceilings, polished floors, cold air smelling of money and marble. A tall woman at reception froze mid-phone call. "Sweetheart, are you lost?" "No, ma'am. I'm here for the interview with Mr. Rhodes." Before the receptionist could answer, a pair of double doors opened. Callum Rhodes, early 40s, suit immaculate, eyes sharp with the kind of exhaustion money can't fix, stepped out. His assistant was mid-sentence when he noticed the child standing there. "What's this?" he asked, voice low. "She says she's here for the assistant interview," the receptionist replied uncertainly. Ellery clutched her backpack tighter. "Mom's sick, so I came instead." The air changed. Callum blinked once, twice, as if trying to place the words in a world that made sense. His board members down the hall exchanged amused glances. But Callum's laughter didn't come. He crouched until he was at her eye level. "What's your name?" "Ellery Pierce." "And your mom?" "Imani Pierce. She works hard, real hard." He looked at her resume. Creased, but neat, and then back at the girl's trembling chin. Something in him cracked open. Maybe it was the way she stood there, unflinching, or the way her little voice didn't beg. It just believed. Behind him, his assistant whispered, "Sir, we can call security." "No," Callum said quietly. "Let her sit." Ellery hesitated, then climbed onto the chair at the far end of the conference table, feet dangling inches from the floor. "Why did you come?" he asked. "Because Mama said we can't quit when things get hard. And things are real hard right now." Her voice trembled only once. Back at St. Matthew's Hospital, Imani woke to an empty chair. The cardigan gone, and panic hit her like ice water. She stumbled for the phone, dialing every number she knew. When the nurse said she'd seen Ellery leave with purpose, Imani felt her knees buckle. She called a cab, voice breaking. "Silverleaf Industries, please hurry." At the estate, Callum's assistant whispered, "Sir, this is absurd." "Absurd is laying off 200 workers because I wouldn't take a chance on people who need it." He turned back to the little girl. "Tell me what your mom wants to do here." "She wants to help. She types fast, and she listens when people are sad." The room went still. For a moment, the hum of the AC was the only sound. Then Callum smiled faintly. "Those are good skills." The front doors swung open. Imani burst in, chest heaving. "Ellery!" she gasped. "Sweetheart, how did you even—" The sight of her mother sent Ellery running, wrapping her arms around her waist. Imani's eyes darted to Callum, mortified. "Sir, I'm so sorry. She just wanted to help. Please don't hold this against—" Callum raised a hand. "Miss Pierce, your daughter already said enough." Imani opened her mouth to answer, but the world tilted. The polished floor seemed to rise toward her, voices stretched into echoes. She tried to blink the blur away. Callum's figure, Ellery's small face, but her knees buckled before her mind could catch up. "Mom!" Ellery screamed as Imani's body crumpled. Callum lunged forward, catching her just before she hit the floor. The weight of her, too light, too limp, startled him. He'd carried people through disasters before, but this felt different. This was human fragility in his arms, the kind money couldn't fix. "Get water? Now!" he barked. His voice cracked through the hall like thunder. Ellery knelt beside her mother, tears spilling fast. "She didn't eat, sir. She's been at the hospital all week." Callum looked down at Imani's pale face, the exhaustion etched deep beneath her eyes. For a moment, something in his chest gave way, an ache he hadn't let himself feel in years. "It's okay," he murmured, lowering her carefully onto the leather couch by the window. "She's safe. I've got her." Ellery gripped his sleeve, trembling. "Please don't be mad at her." He met her gaze, steady, pleading, far too wise. "Mad?" he said quietly. "No, not mad." He glanced back at Imani's still hand, her pulse faint but there, just wondering why it took a little girl to remind me what real strength looks like. Outside, the Arizona wind stirred the desert trees, and for the first time in years the walls of Silverleaf Haven didn't feel so cold. Imani came to slowly, blinking against the blur of light streaming through a high glass window. Her head rested on something soft. The faint scent of cedar and citrus filled the air. For a second she thought she was back at the hospital, until she heard her daughter's voice. "Mama, you fainted. Mr. Rhodes said you needed rest." Her eyes flicked toward the source of the voice. Ellery sat perched on the edge of a leather couch, her backpack clutched tightly to her chest. Beside her stood Callum Rhodes, sleeves rolled up, a glass of water in his hand. "You scared us," he said gently. "You've been out for almost 10 minutes. Imani's cheeks flushed. She tried to sit up, embarrassed by the vulnerability. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't," Callum interrupted softly. "You just forgot to breathe for a while." She blinked at him, thrown by the kindness in his tone. "Most people don't come charging into my office, ready to collapse," he added with a half-smile. "You set a new record." Despite herself, Imani let out a shaky laugh. "Guess that's not how job interviews usually go." "No," he said. "But maybe they should." They sat in awkward silence for a moment, the ticking of the wall clock filling the space. Callum poured water into a second glass and handed it to Ellery, who took it politely but never stopped watching her mother's face. "I shouldn't have let her come here alone," Imani murmured, guilt twisting her voice. "She just wanted to help." "She did more than help," Callum said. "She reminded me people are still brave." He walked toward the window, hands in his pockets. "Do you know how many adults cancel interviews with excuses about traffic or rain? And your daughter takes a city bus to one of the richest neighborhoods in Arizona because she thought it would help her mom." Imani swallowed hard, tears threatening. "She's all I have." Callum turned, meeting her eyes. For a long moment, neither spoke. "You know," he said finally, "I grew up in Chandler. My mom cleaned offices downtown. She used to tell me that strength isn't what you show when things are easy. It's what you do when everything falls apart." Imani stared at him, caught off guard. "You're from here?" "Born and raised. I just traded dust for glass walls." A silence hung, comfortable this time. Ellery's voice broke it softly. "Mama, can we go home now?" Imani nodded, trying to stand, but Callum stopped her gently. "You're still pale. Why don't you sit a minute?" She hesitated. "Sir, I can't afford to waste your time." "Time's all I've got," he said with a faint smile. "Money's the easy part." That line hung heavy in the air, rich with subtext. As minutes passed, the tension thinned. Callum asked about Imani's hospital bills, and though she tried to keep her answers polite, the truth slipped through. Unpaid shifts, night jobs, the fear of losing insurance. "I just want to stand on my own again," she said, voice trembling. "I don't need charity, just a chance." "I don't do charity," Callum replied quietly. "But I do recognize grit when I see it." He picked up her resume from the table, smoothing its crumpled edges. "Your experience, admin work, scheduling, customer care, those are solid. But what I'm really interested in is something not on this paper." "What's that?" she asked. "Whatever made your daughter think she could walk into a billionaire's office and not be afraid?" The question broke her. Tears welled up, uninvited, but honest. "She's seen me fight too long not to believe we can win sometimes," Imani whispered. Ellery slipped her small hand into her mother's, squeezing tight. Callum exhaled slowly, something heavy loosening inside him. "I'm hosting a charity gala here next week," he said. "We're short a coordinator. My last one quit over stress. If you're feeling better by then, I want you to help me pull it off." Imani blinked. "Next week, sir, It's paid. Well, paid. And it'll show me what you can really do. Deal?" She hesitated, unsure if she'd heard right. "You're offering me the job?" "A trial," Callum said. "1 week from today, you focus on getting well, and if you're ready, we'll make it happen. Let's see if the world gives you what you've already earned." Ellery beamed. "Mama, say yes." Imani's laugh broke through the tears. "Okay," she said softly. "Yes." Later, as Callum walked them to the door, he knelt to meet Ellery's eyes. "You did something incredible today, kid," he said. "You reminded me that the best hires come from the heart." "Does that mean my mom got the job?" "It means she got a chance. And sometimes that's bigger." Ellery grinned, a flash of sunlight in the sterile lobby. When they left, Callum stood watching the glass doors close, his reflection split across their surface. For the first time in years, the house felt alive again, like someone had opened a window in a room long sealed. That night, Imani tucked Ellery into the narrow hospital cot beside her own bed. The machines beeped quietly, but her heart felt lighter. "Mama," Ellery mumbled, eyes half closed. "You think Mr. Rhodes will be nice?" "I think he already was." Imani brushed her daughter's curls from her face and whispered, "We're going to be okay." The words felt strange on her tongue, but maybe true. If you've ever seen someone risk everything for family, maybe this is where you pause and stay. Stories like this remind us what love really looks like. Quiet, scared, and still unstoppable. A week later, the Arizona evening spread pink and gold across the sky as cars wound through the gates of Silverleaf Haven. String lights twinkled over the courtyard. Servers moved like clockwork under the hum of expensive laughter. Inside, Imani Pierce stood behind a row of guest tables, adjusting a centerpiece for the 5th time. Her hands trembled, not from nerves but the tail end of recovery. The hospital discharge papers still sat folded in her purse. She'd worked all day to hide the weakness in her arms. Across the room, Callum Rhodes surveyed the scene in his tailored suit, speaking quietly with board members and donors. Every so often, his gaze drifted to her, checking, maybe without realizing it, if she was holding up. "Everything looks perfect," he said when he finally approached. Imani managed a small smile. "Almost. The florists brought white lilies instead of peonies." "I can live with that," he replied. "You sure you're okay?" "I've been worse." They shared a faint laugh, but beneath it was something else, an unspoken current neither dared to name. By 7 o'clock, the estate was alive with light and chatter. Musicians played under the gazebo, champagne glasses clinked, and the desert breeze carried hints of citrus and night-blooming jasmine. Imani slipped into the kitchen to catch her breath. The cool air hit her face like mercy. That's when she overheard 2 servers whispering. "That's the new hire? The one who fainted in front of Mr. Rhodes? Yeah, they say he only kept her because he felt sorry for her. Figures. He's got a soft spot for charity cases." The words hit her like glass shattering. She froze, tray in hand, trying not to let it show. He felt sorry for me? When she stepped back into the ballroom, her vision blurred, not from sickness this time, but humiliation. Callum found her near the terrace, shoulders tense as she rearranged perfectly straight napkins. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly. "Fine," she said too quickly. He tilted his head. "You don't look fine." "Maybe that's because I'm not a charity case, Mr. Rhodes." He blinked. "What?" "I heard your staff. You don't have to keep me here to prove you're generous. I'll find work somewhere else." Her voice trembled, but her chin lifted. For the first time, anger burned hotter than fear. "Imani, you don't know what it feels like to beg for a job while your child watches, to have people whisper that you only got here because someone pitied you." Callum took a slow breath. "You think this is pity?" "Isn't it?" she snapped. "You've got your mansion, your suits, your second chances. Men like you don't see women like me as equals." Her words hit like thunder, echoing off the marble. Around them, laughter and music went on, as if the world hadn't cracked open. For a long moment, Callum didn't answer. Then he said quietly, "You're right. I don't know what it's like to be you. But you're wrong about why you're here." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I lost someone once, a woman who never got a second chance. I built all this." He gestured around them, thinking I could fill the space she left. Then a 10-year-old girl walked into my office and reminded me what grace looks like. Imani's breath hitched. "You think I kept you here out of pity?" He continued. "No. I kept you here because you made me remember the kind of person I wanted to be before I got lost in all this." His voice cracked at the edges, raw and unguarded. "But if you want to leave, I'll walk you out myself." The silence that followed felt endless. The music inside dimmed. The night wind rushed through the open doors. Imani looked at him, tears rising again, but this time from something deeper than pride. "I just didn't want Ellery to see me fail again," she whispered. Callum's expression softened completely. "You haven't failed. You just forgot who's been watching you succeed all along." Before either could say more, a commotion broke near the entrance. Ellery, running in breathless, clutching her sketchbook. "Mama, I wanted to see you working." Imani knelt, pulling her into her arms, heart thudding. "Baby, I told you to stay with Miss Carla." "I did, but she said Mr. Rhodes was giving out cupcakes." Callum chuckled under his breath. "Guilty as charged." But as the guests turned to see the commotion, the murmurs started again. About the hospital mom. About the CEO and the little girl. Imani's cheeks burned. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "We'll go." Callum looked at her, really looked, and something inside him hardened. "No," he said firmly. "You'll stay. She belongs here as much as anyone." And then, in front of the entire room, he bent down and picked up the sketchbook Ellery had dropped. Inside, a drawing. Her mom at a desk, smiling. He held it up for the crowd. "This," he said quietly, "is why we're here tonight. To build futures that look like this." The room went still. Someone began to clap. Then another. Imani's eyes filled. For the first time, the whispers faded, and the noise that replaced them was pure applause. Outside, under the warm Arizona night, she turned to him. "Why did you do that?" "Because you deserved to be seen," Callum said simply, "and because sometimes courage needs an audience." The gala wound down slowly. Guests drifted out beneath the Arizona stars, their laughter fading into the hum of crickets. Inside Silverleaf Haven, the once loud ballroom had quieted to the faint echo of clinking glasses and soft music. Imani stood near the terrace, still dazed by the standing ovation that had followed Callum's impromptu speech. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. Ellery had fallen asleep on a couch nearby, her small head resting against her mother's blazer. Callum approached quietly, jacket slung over his arm, the night breeze tousling his hair. "She's out cold," he said softly. "She hasn't slept like that in days," Imani whispered back. "She was scared I'd lose another job." A pause, the kind of silence that held understanding instead of awkwardness. "You were incredible tonight," Callum said. "I only put flowers on tables," she replied. "You held that entire room together," he countered. "You reminded them what gratitude looks like." Imani smiled faintly, but her voice trembled. "I thought I'd ruined everything when she ran in." "No," he said. "You made it real." He looked around the now empty hall, then back at her. "You said earlier you didn't want charity. So don't think of this as that. Think of it as partnership." She frowned gently. "Partnership?" "Silverleaf runs a community mentorship program for single parents. It's underfunded and half alive. I want you to lead it. Full salary, benefits, flexibility for Ellery." Her lips parted, but no words came. "You don't even know if I can—" "I've seen enough," he interrupted. "And honestly, you'd be doing me a favor. That department's been nothing but dust and excuses." Imani stared at him, emotion building until it escaped as laughter, through tears. "You're serious? Completely?" He extended his hand. She hesitated, then shook it. His grip was warm, steady, the kind of handshake that said, "You're home." Later that week, in a small sunlit office at Silverleaf Industries, Imani placed a framed photo of Ellery on her new desk. The walls were still bare, the smell of fresh paint lingering, but her heart felt like it finally belonged somewhere. Down the hall, Callum stood at the doorway, watching quietly as she arranged files, humming under her breath. "Settling in?" he asked. "Trying to," she said with a smile. "It feels strange to have a door with my name on it. Get used to it. You earned it." He turned to go, but she stopped him. "Callum? Yeah? Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." He looked at her, expression soft. "Thank your daughter. She taught me how." That evening, they met at the hospital. Imani for her final checkup. Callum to drop off a donation for the pediatric wing. Ellery bounced between them, holding both their hands. "Mama says she's almost all better," she told Callum proudly. "She's the toughest person I know," he replied. "Nope," Ellery grinned. "We both know that's you, Mr. Rhodes." They laughed together, the kind of laugh that carried relief, the sound of lives turning a corner. As they walked out into the dusk, Imani glanced up at the Arizona sky streaked with pink clouds. "You ever wonder why people meet the way they do?" she asked quietly. "All the time," he said. "I used to think luck. Now I think it's grace disguised as chaos." She looked at him, eyes glistening. "You're not as cold as people think." "Neither are you," he said softly. They stood there for a moment. Two survivors, two believers in second chances, while Ellery spun circles in the parking lot, her laughter echoing into the warm desert air. A month later, Silverleaf Haven hosted a new event. This one for the mentorship program Imani now led. Parents from all over Phoenix came, some timid, some desperate, all welcomed with warmth. Imani stood at the podium, Callum beside her. Ellery held the microphone cord like an assistant who took her job very seriously. "A year ago," Imani began, "I thought my life was ending inside a hospital room. Tonight, I realize it was just beginning. Sometimes love shows up when we least expect it. Sometimes wearing a suit, sometimes carrying a backpack." The audience laughed softly. "But it always shows up when we need it most." She looked at Callum. For a second they just smiled at each other, the kind of look that said everything words couldn't. After the applause, when the crowd dispersed, Callum approached her again. "I meant to tell you something," he said. "I've been thinking of expanding the mentorship program statewide. I can't do it alone." She tilted her head. "Is that a proposal or a partnership offer?" He smiled. "Maybe both." Her laughter filled the courtyard, blending with the sound of the fountain and the soft Arizona wind. That night, after tucking Ellery into bed, Imani stood by the window of their new apartment overlooking downtown Scottsdale. The city lights shimmered like promises kept. She whispered to herself, "We made it." From her nightstand, Callum's text lit up her phone screen. "Callum, Thank you for believing when I didn't. Imani, thank you for seeing me when no one else tried. She smiled, setting the phone down. Outside, the desert wind carried the scent of rain, the first storm in months. If this story touched something deep in you, if it reminded you that love can still find its way through broken places, then stay. Because stories like this aren't just told. They're lived by people like you who still believe in grace. The end. Thank you for staying with me until the very last moment of this story. If something in it, even a single glance, a breath, a heartbeat, reached you, then this story did what it was meant to do. Every view, every heartbeat that listens, keeps this little world of stories alive. So, before you go, take a quiet second, become part of this journey. Subscribe, not just to follow a channel, but to stay connected to the next story waiting to speak to your heart. The next one goes even deeper. More truth, more love, more healing. And it's already waiting for you. Your next story begins right here.